So, I watched season 2 of She-Ra, and it wasn't great, unfortunately. While some of the issues can be classified as continuing problems for this series that have been carried over from season 1, just as many, if not more, problems just starting to surface in the show. At a fundamental level, this season didn't get as many episodes as the previous, so that alone is leaving the show with less time to get a lot of things done. And with this season piggybacking off the Bright Moon finale, it's safe to say we were expecting a lot, and with not as much time to deliver it all. Without actually getting into the details and simplifying my opinion, I would say that I did like Season 2, but it had a lot more issues than the previous. Most of the individual episodes, with a few exceptions, lacked a lot of the charm that the first season's episode had, and overall nothing important happened, so it felt like a season of filler. But that doesn't matter right now. It's true that I am considering doing a full, comprehensive review of She-Ra as its own video, so I'll save my thoughts for that, but today I'm here to focus on the main thing that I salvaged from the second season, and just the series in general. Today we're looking at the saving grace for this show. Today, we're looking at Catra. So, for anyone who might not know, Catra is Adora's childhood friend and acts as a sister figure. Once Adora takes up the mantle of She-Ra and abandons the Horde, Catra receives a promotion to Force Captain, and since has acted as the primary rival for the main cast. When reviewing She-Ra and shows like it, I think it's important to keep in mind who the show is intended for, because that alone shapes a great number of elements in the show, and also said show's presentation. She-Ra is a kids show. I think that much, the fact that it's intended for kids isn't really up for debate. As a result of it being more directed towards children, there isn't as much of a necessary emphasis on what you and I might consider good fundamental writing. I'm talking things like character arcs and development, in-depth writing, complex storytelling. It's intended for kids, and I don't think kids care about these things, thus there is a lack of them in the show. And that's not a bad thing, especially in this case. When you have a show like She-Ra, which is very simplistic in story and very basic in character, it becomes very easy to identify exception when it shows up. Catra is the best example of this in She-Ra. The cast of She-Ra is incredibly basic. Each character is almost entirely defined by a few traits or quirks, and so when a character comes along and displays realism, relatability, and has had character arcs and development, they very quickly stand out. Catra is by far the most realistic and developed character in She-Ra. She's all around the best character in the entire show. And here's why. In the beginning of the show, Catra acts as the best friend and sister figure to Adora. The way that they interact and their manner of speaking conveys their closeness well enough. They joke, play, and even when they show more negative emotions directed at one another, it's always clear that there is an underlining love. So that's all well and good. But it isn't until Adora's journey back into the Whispering Woods and her eventual capture that some of Catra's more complex emotions start to come out. Despite the fear of facing Shadow Weaver and the potential consequences of what Adora's done, Catra agrees to cover for Adora. Naturally, she shows great concern for her and even admits that she doesn't necessarily care about either side of the war, only their relationship. Once Adora refuses to return with her, she shows her emotions conflicting. Her care for Adora naturally presents itself as her pleading for her to return with her. Once that love is denied, she begins to dread the consequence, and that leads to her shocking Adora, an action that, while she immediately regrets, does show her willingness to go to more extreme lengths if it means, quote-unquote, protecting her best friend. Catra feels betrayed. That alone is a lot to deal with, but when you add on to it that it's the person that's closest to her and most dear to her, her actions and mentality start to become a little more clear. Not only that, but these feelings are new to her, so she doesn't quite understand what she's feeling. And in that uncertainty, lashes out in anger, making her a much more aggressive person than she might be otherwise. I think this is a fair way to describe her and most of her actions for the majority of the first season. That is until we get to the episode Princess Prom. Not only is this all around the strongest, most charming, and just best episode in the show, but it also does wonders for developing Adora and Catra's current relationship. Immediately, we're shown Catra's willingness to manipulate Scorpia's emotion, only to further herself. This is an interesting twist to her typically aggressive character. Instead of falling back on aggression and violence, she appeals to Scorpia's emotions and convinces her that she cares. Probably a lie. Catra is very sly in her presentation during this particular episode. She makes note of gaining Frost's favor, utilizing their unfamiliarity, and at the same time spends the entire episode slowly digging her way under Adora's skin, provoking her while she's guided around, being slowly wrapped around her finger. Catra is admittedly an over-aggressive and violent person, but her actions during the ball show that she understands when to hold back and what to prioritize. If nothing else, she shows in this episode that she is very intelligent. And whether or not it was intended, I think this episode does a good job at comparing and contrasting Adora and Catra. Adora spends the entire episode angry and agitated, hunting down Catra. She appears far more negative, almost antagonistic. And while it is true that Catra was up to something, there was never any confirmation of that until the end of the episode, and so Catra appears far more positive and mellow throughout the episode, at least until the end. Immediately after, in the episode No Princess Left Behind, we're treated to another interesting development, by far one of the best of Catra's many. This entire season has been spent hammering in the idea that Catra wants to stop Adora. Having once wanted her to come back, her motivations have now shifted towards a more vengeful agenda. But that idea, a concept with almost a dozen episodes of development, is thrown on its head in a single scene.
Catra. What are you doing?
Take it. This is not because I like you. Catra, just get out of here.
You can take a lot away from this, but while watching it, the thing that came to mind was something Catra had said earlier in the show.
Doesn't matter what they do. The two of us look out for each other.
And I think that perfectly sums up what's happening here. She's prioritizing her relationship with Adora over her duty. In this moment, Catra isn't choosing Horde or Rebellion, she's choosing Adora. And this particular scene seems to represent a change in her character, as afterwards she's far less aggressive, in general, and begins to utilize other tools to accomplish her goals. An example of this is her whipping out manipulation again to convince Entrapta to join the Horde rather than committing to violence and force. She cites her own experiences with Adora as the hook, and it seems that after that, Entrapta is convinced. The episode Promise, I think, has to be the best episode in terms of Catra's development, because we learn far more about her then than anywhere else, and it gives meaning to a lot of her actions and character. Catra has been subject to verbal, mental, physical, and magical abuse for the entirety of her life. As a child, the only thing remotely able to stop that has been Adora. So not only was she her best friend and essentially her sister, but also a safeguard from torture. This is reinforced by this scene.
Easy, Catra. Adora's not here to protect you anymore.
So now, learning this, it also adds another layer of complexity to Catra and her actions, while at the same time making it clear that Adora's betrayal was a lot more devastating than anyone realized. Reliving all of those happy memories was sure to make the painful ones sting even more. Vengeance is very much within Catra's character, and that makes this scene all the more sad.
Hey, Adora.
Catra, help me, please.
This thing wouldn't work for me if I tried, would it? It only works for you. Then again, you're special. That's what Shadow Weaver always said.
Catra, what are you doing?
You know, it all makes sense now. You've always been the one holding me back. You wanted me to think I needed you. You wanted me to feel weak. Every hero needs a sidekick, right?
Catra, no, that's not how it was.
The sad thing is, I've spent all this time hoping you'd come back to the Horde, when really you leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me. I am so much stronger than anyone ever thought. I wonder what I could have been if I'd gotten rid of you sooner.
I am sorry. I never meant to make you feel like you were second best. Please don't do this.
Bye, Adora. I really am going to miss you.
Catra! Catra, no!
If you want my opinion on this scene, I don't think there was any way for Catra to know that Adora would survive. I think that in this scene, Catra is convinced that she is condemning Adora to death. She manages to overcome a lot of her inner struggles, and in doing so convinces herself that Adora is a weakness. In one swift action, Catra, driven by vengeance, enacts revenge on Adora. She administers what she believes to be the same betrayal enacted on her, and simultaneously removes her greatest weakness. Now, you could argue this particular point is void due to Catra and Adora's interaction during the Battle of Bright Moon. But is it really? Catra is still angry, and even goes out of her way to mention that she's anxious to be the one to take Adora down. Now, it is a kid's show, so, take down, defeat is what she said, but realistically, she wants to kill Adora. I think that, can we agree on that? That Catra is meaning that she's going to kill Adora, that she wants to be the one to kill Adora. So, in a world of generally simplistic characters, Catra stands above them all as someone who's been receiving development as the antagonist as a character since the opening episode. She's the product of years and years of abuse, feeling alone and betrayed as her only friend, and her safeguard from the horrors of the world turned her back on her. She defaults to violence and anger as a way to cope and fight back, as it's one of the few things she's known. She shows that she wants to still trust Adora, and that she wants to move on and better herself, but in the end, she can't possibly bring herself to leave the Horde. Catra may be the villain, but she's without a doubt the most realistic and interesting in her presentation. And it's true, I couldn't cover them all in today's video, but the points I did do and that I did go over are some of the many reasons why I believe Catra is the best character in all of She-Ra. Hey guys, I just want to drop in at the end of the video here to thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. Before I sign off, I wanted to make a quick point that I thought of while I was editing. Yes, all the points and scenes cited in this video were from the first season of She-Ra. As I mentioned in the beginning, Season 2 is out and I have seen it. So if you're wondering why I didn't cover any events from that season, basically not a lot happened. I mean, obviously there were some important and noteworthy things that did occur, but overall, I don't think there was enough to really dig into. But if you haven't seen Season 2 yet, they do this really interesting character dynamic and character development between Catra and Shadow Weaver, which does add to both of their characters quite a bit, actually. So I'd recommend going and watching it. If for whatever reason you haven't seen any of She-Ra yet, then I definitely advise you to go see it. It's available on Netflix as one of their originals. But regardless of all that, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like. I always appreciate it. And did I miss anything in particular that, in accordance to Catra's character? If you thought there was a point from Season 1 or Season 2 that you think would have fit in the video, drop that in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. And what were your thoughts on the video? Or on She-Ra? Was my coverage of Catra as a character good enough? Again, did I miss some stuff? Did you like the video, just in general? What are your thoughts on She-Ra as a show? Let me know all that stuff down in the comments. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. It's true that I don't upload very often, but I still am an active channel, and I love making videos like these, so again, just consider it. But anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video, whenever that may be. Later.